Hi, I'm MParker, and I did my senior project based off of neonatal nursing. A lot of my family has always worked in the medical field, and it was always something I had an interest in, but I wasn't sure exactly where I fit in the medical field, what my strengths were in the medical field, or even if I wanted to do a job in the medical field. So this led me to a summer volunteer program at North Jefferson Hospital. This is where I did my internship in community service over the summer. The program there, you had to do an interview and fill out recommendations for. I really like this program because you rotate through different areas of the hospital. So I could be in ER one day, CT the next, and then inpatient. So I could see the different aspects of the hospital. And this is really what I wanted to see where I fit in at. So I got into the program and I went in for orientation. And I did orientation was about 4 hours, and then I went in for about 5 days to volunteer, 8 hours each day. The day started at 8 o'clock. You go to your first session, break for lunch about 12, and then the next session goes from 12:30 to about 4:30. So when I went to orientation, I got this badge that I had to wear. I was there with a red polo shirt and khaki pants was my outfit. It was tennis shoes. So I didn't look exactly like a staff member, but people could recognize I've worked for the hospital, but I wasn't certified to do everything. But this badge let me into most doors in the hospital, so essentially I was part of the staff for that week. And while I was there, I really learned the ins and outs of the hospital and kind of all the hospital rules that I wasn't aware of. Hospitals have a lot of code, a lot of rules that you have to follow, different steps on how to do everything. So my overall mentor for this process was Mrs. Jackie Martin, but I didn't really work with her that much because in each area I rotated through, I had my separate person I shadowed for each section, and that could change just depending on the day. Since I normally did Fridays and Saturdays at the hospital. So Friday I might be an inpatient shadow nurse, and then I would go to emergency and shadow a different person, and then when I go there on another Friday or Saturday, there's different staff working. So the person I shadowed depended on the day. So originally I was placed in CT and MRI in the morning. This is an MRI. MRI uses magnetics and CT uses radiation. And for CT, you have to give the patient contrast. They come in. For CT, I did a lot of observing in the CT MRI because I couldn't work the machines or anything. So I just observed the computers they use and the processes. And I gave patients contrast, like I said, helped them into the room, cleaned up vomit, escorted them in, escorted them out, things like that. Well, while I was in the CT and MRI, I noticed what I was doing was very repetitive. I did the same thing every time, gave the patient contrast, let them in. We observed the machine, they cleaned up the bed, cleaned up the machinery, let them out, got the next patient. And since this process was figuring out what I wanted to do, I decided I really didn't like the repetitiveness of that field. So I asked Jackie Martin if I could switch to an emergency department in the morning. I felt like emergency was a drastic change from that, so I could see exactly where I liked best, because emergency is fast-paced, it's not repetitive at all, there's a different situation every time. So fortunately, she let me switch. So in the mornings, I now did emergency. So this is the emergency department at North Jefferson Hospital. Where all the chairs are is where the doctors and nurses sit, and then that's a single room. That's a single room, and then those are double rooms. And then through that door is the entryway, and to the right there is a room I went in a lot. It's right when, if it's not an emergency, the patients go in that room. They have kind of a consultation with the nurse, learn what they're doing, and then they get put in to one of these rooms where it doesn't have a bed in there right now, but the next one is kitchen bed. So in the emergency room, it was not as fast-paced as I thought it was. It's not as bloody and gory as you think an emergency room is going to be. It's a lot of like pain that they're not sure where it's coming from, a lot of just broken wrists, things like that. So in emergency, one of the tasks I did was I made a lot of beds in emergency room. People are always coming in and out of emergency, which is good. You don't want them to stay in there. The point of the emergency room is to get the patient in, hopefully give them back to health, and then leave, but that's not always the case. They usually go to an intensive care unit, or they get a screening or MRI or CT done. That's what I learned a lot of. Even though I wasn't an MRI and CT anymore in the mornings, there was a lot of overlap between every area of the hospital. A lot of emergency patients go there, and while I was in MRI and CT, a lot of patients got emergency. So there's a lot of overlap. So I had to make a lot of beds quick because patients are going in and out, in and out. And in that desk or drawer right there, so I had all the stuff to make the bed. Other things I had to do were I had to replenish gloves, which they aren't in this picture, they'd be up on the wall right there. And then there'd be wires back there. I had to make sure we're straightened. And then at the bottom right here, they usually do 2 poles coming up that need to put down. Another thing you can do in emergency was I would go by room to room, and I would just talk to the patients depending on their health. And I would ask them if they needed anything. One thing I couldn't give them in emergency was water that I could give them inpatient. You don't know if they've been vomiting, you don't want to give them water. Or the doctor would have them on a no food, no water diet just for the time they're in there, so you can give them water. But other things you can go around, ask if they need a nurse or a doctor depending on the situation. You can ask if they need a warm towel. We've got that before. Everyone always gets a warm towel while they're in there. And so emergency was fast-paced, and I really liked it. Another thing I didn't know about emergency rooms was that a lot of mental patients come through the emergency room, which I did not realize that before I go in there. Because if someone sees them or they're just doing something out of the ordinary, they automatically go to the emergency room and wait there until their hospital specific for them is ready. So then after lunch, I go to inpatient. Inpatient was not as intense as emergency, but it was very similar. In inpatient, the head nurse usually sits there, and then I would sit right there and I would answer the phone. It could be people from the unit itself calling, patients calling in saying, I need to go to the bathroom. I couldn't do that, so I get a nurse aide, or it could be saying I need my blood pressure checked, call a nurse. Like I need a doctor, call the doctor, because I had a number for every nurse and doctor on the phone that I could call. Or if it's something as I need like readjusted on my bed, I need a pillow, I need water, something like that, I could do that myself. One thing I learned throughout this process is I became more comfortable with doing those things myself. In the beginning, I was like, oh, let me go get a nurse every time. But then I learned there were some things I could do by myself, and I became more independent, and I learned in the hospital you do need to act. Like, you need to act right away. You can't just wait and get help from someone. So I feel like I did grow in that way. I learned to act quicker and just do the things on my own that I could do. I learned how to do more of these things on my own. But like I said, inpatient some days is very slow. On the slow days, I would feel more comfortable, like I said, going around just talking to some of the patients, because the patients in inpatient are usually, like I said, emergency, they go to a different unit. From inpatient, they're usually about to leave the hospital. So they're doing okay now. They're just waiting to leave. I did walk a lot of patients out. So I would go around and talk to everyone, and I felt more comfortable with that. But some days were slow. Fridays are a lot slower than Saturdays most days. So I had to check every expiration date in this room one day. Because there weren't a lot of patients that day, and I had already gone around. So I had to go through every expiration date of all the medicine. My badge let me into this room. And this is like, each inpatient unit has a room like this. It has gloves, medicine, towels, blankets, things like that. And everything, I need to wipe down everything. So I had to restock everything, make sure everything's good, check expiration dates, things like that. So that's not one of the funner parts, but it's something that needs to get done. So while my internship community service was geared towards nursing in general, I decided to do my research paper and legacy more geared toward neonatal nursing. So neonatal nursing, a neonate is an infant that's below about a month. It's a newborn, essentially. And NICU would also be a term I'm going to say a lot. NICU is a neonatal intensive care unit. So it's essentially like an emergency room for babies. So that would be the kind of nurse I decided to focus the process on. So I partnered with the WISE fitness director, Blake Campbell, and Jess Luck, the instructor, who is right there. And we did a new mother's Pilates class. I originally wanted to do an expecting mothers class, but you have to be additionally certified to teach pregnant mothers. So all we had available at the YMCA was a new mother, which worked out perfect. So for this class, I thought it would be significant because nursing is all about health anyways, healthy living, healthy lifestyle. But I also gave each person X, just like the instructor, a new mom. Her baby was only 10 weeks old. She just had a girl. And then that was another mom who came to the class. I gave all of them a goodie bag when they came. It had essentials for every new mom. It had vitamin water, granola bar, lotion, tissues, and then it also had a brochure information packet I made. And that had information on my senior project, on the NICU, facts on neonates, which a lot of people don't know about. So that's what I kind of wanted to give to them before, but it's always so good. And there's another section on even if you decide to have another child, like what you should know. And I have worked with Blake, and I have requested for this class to be continued. After why every year, I can't, of course, give them goodie bags every year, but they could reuse my information packet and things like that. So I also focused my research more on the NICU. My research question was, what can be done to eliminate errors in the NICU? And I found the biggest error was perceived lack of awareness around staff and communication, almost as high as 60%, so that's a huge issue. NICU has one of the highest error rates of any area of the hospital. It averages about 5%, which may not seem like a lot, but it really is. And then in some of the studies, I found it was even as high as 30% in my research. Not all of these errors are result in death, but they are something we need to look into. The reason the errors in the NICU are so high is because the NICU is one of the newest areas in the hospital. Not a lot of research has been done in this field. The NICU, the neonates are always, they were just born. So their metabolism is constantly changing, their weight's constantly changing, their height's changing. So by the time the doctor prescribes medicine, by the time it reaches neonate, their weight could have changed, their metabolism could have changed. So I found the biggest way to fix some of these errors, I looked into communication, staffing, safety. A lot of other things I looked in were, well, when I interviewed my professional interview, I interviewed my friend's mom, Mrs. McCauley. She's the head nurse in the NICU department of the Mercury Doctors Hospital, and she's been there for about 20 years. So I asked her what could be done in her unit to reduce errors. She said the biggest improvement from them was switching from handwriting information when doctors have to handwrite information to an all computerized system. This just gets rid of any, some people write in cursive, some don't. It's just, some handwriting is illegible, some people may take different letters differently, so this gets rid of a lot of errors in that field. Another issue was staffing, and I found that some people just work the night shift better than others. Sometimes they're busier than others, sometimes they're less. So staffing does play a big role in this. And someone does really need to focus on which hours people work, because that does affect it a lot. Another error was the miscommunication and the lack of awareness by staff. And one way this can be solved is by an educational intervention, about once every 2 months. Just have someone come in, focus on what points they need to review, what things they need to go over, what things they know not to do. And then another way to reduce all these medication errors across the board is the double check system. It may seem simple and you may think hospitals should already do this, and they probably should be, but if you double check the person behind you in your own work each time along the way, so if the neonate's weight did change at the prescribing phase, then the doctor gets it, then the nurse, maybe the nurse aide, and then it gets the baby. If each person checks their own work and the work before them, this will decrease medication errors very much. Okay, so my biggest advice for rising Blue Ridge seniors is to work ahead of time. Mr. Dorico will give you a long list of things you have to do for each module, lay it all out, and so you'll do the first 3 and you'll feel good and you'll week ahead. But just go ahead and work ahead and do the rest. You don't want to get behind, because once you get behind, it won't be good. So another piece of advice I have that also relates to time is I did a combined internship community service over the summer, so I found that very helpful. I couldn't imagine doing my internship community service like 2 days out of school with all my other AP classes. So I would just do it then. You may think it'll ruin your summer, but it won't if it's something you're interested in. I was interested in medicine when I first came in, but then I learned that it really wasn't for me. One of the reasons I learned this is because when I was in the emergency department one day, one man unfortunately did pass away, and that's something I would have to be dealing with on my job. I learned that, and hopefully it won't occur a lot, but it would be bound to happen one time if I worked in the medical field, especially in like the NICU or emergency department or an area like that. So I've decided to do business, and I will be attending the Virginia Tech School of Business next fall. Any questions?
A couple questions. First, it seemed like you were doing a lot in terms of just like the organizational and the cleanup and the
Yeah.
How much did the hospital rely on volunteers for those services?
They rely on them a lot, I think. Well, yeah, because they put them in areas where they need us.
Mm-hmm.
So like emergency, things like that. I mean, we couldn't go in areas that are like delivery and things like this are off limits, but they really do. Like if someone needs me, like one time I had to, like a little girl came in the emergency department and they couldn't find her mom. So like they went off, they thought she was in the cafeteria, but they weren't. She was like left, and I had to like watch over her for like an hour and like feed her, and things like that. So they do rely on us a lot.
So babysitting would.
Yeah, that's what got me interested in like smaller children, like me.
And then the other question was, what surprised you the most out of this experience? What, like, basically, like, what was different than what you thought of being in a hospital was to be like?
Well, I didn't, probably when I said about emergency, like, it wasn't like as like bloody and gory as I thought it was going to be. It's pretty like everyone, not of course everyone, but most people were like, they can talk back to you. They're good, even in like units such as emergency.
In the hospital, did you discover careers that you didn't know existed?
I did. There's a lot. I didn't know how many like screenings you can get done in different types, just like CT, MRI, and all the other ones. And I observed a lot of those too. If they saw me sitting down, they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to go observe this screening?"
Maddie, you described one of your first places not enjoying the redundancy of it, and then you thought maybe with ER there'd be more variety. And obviously at the end, you've decided maybe not to pursue a profession in the medical field. What else did you learn about yourself, even if you've decided that business is the way you want to go and that's the career you choose? There are obviously millions of jobs in the business world. What characteristics, after having done this, in terms of the day-to-day kind of work that you'd like to do that will keep you stimulated and energized, what did you learn in terms of that?
Well, I learned that I built independence also, and I think I'm going to do marketing because I just kind of like doing things like, partly because like at the Blue Ridge project I did marketing last year, I really like that. So I'm not exactly sure. I learned I'm really indecisive through this process, and that's going to help me. Well, when I was in the hospital year, I said I needed to act, and I would always be like, I don't know if I'm sure, I don't know. But then I learned that I really need to act, and that's something I need to work on. And in my job, I would like to not be the head person to make those decisions. I like to be told kind of like exactly like what to do, what my project is, and to do that. In the hospital, it's very like kind of a gray area of what to do.